Welcome, Ben.
Thank you. I was muted for the intro.
Okay, great.
All right,
Okay,
Mr. Putnam, we are live and recording, so you can start.
okay, great. And right off the bat, I'd like to start with some hellos for Ben, everybody, Dan, and Scott, and Rudy, and Bert, and Lois are all members. And just want to say hi for everybody. Today we have two measures before us. The handling of the CARES funds for the Fluvanna small business grants, and the enhance of the immediate measures for action that Austin is going to present. We're going to leave any filling of officer vacancies until next meeting. And I have in my possession the financial records and the checkbooks. Jerry is off the accounts, so that's all we're going to discuss on that matter. So go ahead and let's see. Let's turn it over to Brian for his presentation on the Fluvanna small business grants.
Thank you, Mr. Putnam. So I'm going to give you a brief overview on the Funds for Recovery and Operations Management. That spells FROM, the From Fluvanna Small Business Grants. Austin also will be able to help me throughout this. So to get you caught up, $350,000 was approved for this program by the Board of Supervisors on June 17th. On July 1st, they will hear a nonprofit portion, and we've recommended $100,000 for that program. These grants are narrowly tailored for response to COVID-19 health emergency, and they'll be managed by the Community Investment Collaborative for a 3% fee. They'll be handling all applications and decision process through that. In order for us to do this, money needs to go to the EDA to go to the CIC, and the CIC will then be able to distribute to businesses. And we'll get into kind of why that needs to occur that way. Just to give you some background on the Community Investment Collaborative, their mission is to support businesses in the Central Virginia area, create access to capital, and empower small businesses for big change. They do have 4 pillars. They are to establish established and proven business education program, which is probably the biggest thing that they've done up until COVID started, was that business education program. They do extensive mentoring, peer discussions, and ongoing support. They give startup financing on ongoing microfinancing to qualified graduates of their business education program, and then also networking within and across the business community. And their president is Stephen Davis, who's been a tremendous help to Fluvanna. CIC currently manages our Fluvanna Business Loan Fund, which in May, we switched over to the Business Recovery Loan Fund, and they've been operating that since 2012 for the county. And also, I believe Mr. Garcia is one of the mentors of CIC. Do I have that right, Rudy? Oh, is Rudy there?
Can you hear me, Brian?
Oh, now I can hear you. Are you still a mentor?
Great. Not quite sure what happened there. I am indeed, I work with them. Okay.
So if you have any questions about CIC, either myself or I'm sure Mr. Garcia will be able to answer those questions for you. Now, the for-profit From Fluvanna grants, this is $350,000 of the program. The eligibility for it that the Board of Supervisors approved is you must be operational as of March 27th, 2020. You must be based out of Fluvanna. You do not have to have a physical location like we did with the business recovery loans. you can be a home-based business in this for this program. You must be current on local taxes because money cannot be used to become current on local taxes. If we did that, that would be considered revenue recovery for the locality, and we're not allowed to use the funds for revenue recovery. So businesses must be current on their local taxes. And again, you have to be a for-profit business or a nonprofit or private school. Those are the only nonprofit entities that are in this portion of the program, is if they are a school. The award amounts are for 0 full-time equivalent employees up to $2,500. A good example of that would be someone who has a full-time job elsewhere. That's their primary income, but they also have, they're a little bit more than a hobby farmer, so they do make money off of it, but they're unable to go to farmers markets, festivals, unable to operate a farm stand. Also, people that are artisans or have small side businesses, they would be eligible for up to $2,500 for the From Fluvanna grants. If you are a sole proprietor, you are eligible to up to $5,000. If you have 2 to 20 full-time equivalents, up to $10,000, 21 to 50, $15,000. And if you have more than 51 employees, you are eligible for $20,000. Businesses must show a revenue loss or expenditure increase due to COVID-19. So costs could include PPE, redesign of structure of operations. So for social distancing requirements, so maybe they created a website or an e-commerce site, or they got a Zoom account to interact with their businesses. Those would all be eligible expenses. They also could use it for payroll or other operating expenses, rent or mortgage payments, or debt incurred because of COVID-19 health disruption, or if they're increased teleworking. They also can use it for lost revenue based on Forward Virginia guidelines. So basically, COVID-19 hits and they've had expenses that they're unable to meet because of COVID-19. They're able to use these funds for that. Examples of criteria would be having to show a 2019 profit and loss, showing how your 2020 profit and loss is different than 2019, or if they have future costs, such as they wanted to put up partitions, but they didn't have the cash available to do so, they could apply for the grant with an estimate and complete the work by September 15th, 2020. And then items not completed by September 15th, we'd ask for repayment. Now, that being said, we're going to meet with the businesses on or about September 15th to make sure that they are either working on the project or the project is complete. The September 15th is not as hard of a deadline it's not done by September 15th. We want things done though by September 15th, if at all possible. Now, ineligible will be franchises not based in Fluvanna, banks, and nonprofit entities that are not schools. The priority, if we become over capacity, which right now I was checking the people interested as of 4:30, and it looks like we will be over capacity. The priority would be closed during phase 3, closed during phase 2, closed during phase 1. So if you're closed at any of those phases, you get first priority for the grants. If you're partially open during phase 3, phase 2, or phase 1, then you're next in line. And then if you remained open, but you suffered a financial loss, you would be last in line. And we have criteria to determine how much of your usual revenue is coming in. That's what would determine if you're closed. So for example, if you have less than 10% of your income, of your normal income, then you would be considered closed during any of those phases. If you get Paycheck Protection Program funding, or if you're a sole proprietor and you have unemployment insurance recipient, then that will be used as a tiebreaker and not an eliminating factor. However, they can't use the funds for the same thing. So if you get money for payroll through PPP or UI, you cannot then claim payroll for the From Fluvanna grants, because that would be double dipping. Now, why the EDA needs to be involved in this? The Commonwealth gives counties certain powers, and the county's authority to spend is limited to certain items. Giving money to businesses is not a power that is granted to counties. The EDA does have the ability to give money to businesses. Now, the CARES Act was federal money passed to the Commonwealth, passed to the county. The Commonwealth did include guidance from the federal government that said the county could give it for business grants, but it is unclear if that guidance that came from the federal government to the Commonwealth, to the Fluvanna, would allow the Board of Supervisors to give money for grants. It is clear that the EDA does have that ability regardless of the guidance that came out. We know that the EDA always has the ability to give money to businesses, and that's why the EDA should be involved here. It's just a best practice for the county to have the money go from the county to the EDA and then the EDA to CIC for the business grants. Now, just real brief, the nonprofit business grants that we're working on that the Board of Supervisors will hear on Wednesday, this has not yet been approved, but I figured there'd probably be questions about it. This is for nonprofits that are operational as of March 27th, based in Fluvanna and engaged in activities legal under the law. It'd be for 501c3s, C4s, or C6s. And amount awarded would be based off of, if you provided a community need, you'd be eligible for up to $15,000. And if you did not, if you're just a nonprofit, then you'd be eligible for up to $5,000. You must show increased costs or loss of revenue due to COVID-19. You must provide your IRS tax exemption determination letter, and you must provide budget for the use of funds. Now, how we were determining community needs, we've suggested that you provided food, childcare, or other household needs, such as clothing, on an ongoing basis throughout the health crisis. So you can't see that the From Fluvanna grants came out and then suddenly create a one-time food drive. We want to see that you gave sustained community needs to be eligible for those additional funds. Funds can be used for, again, PPE, redesign of structure of operations, payroll, rent, mortgage, debt incurred, teleworking, or lost revenue. And then people ineligible for this grant would be for-profit businesses or private schools. The priority would be provided food for community, provided childcare for the community, provided other household needs, such as clothing or other items. And then the last would be did not provide any community needs. Again, PPP funding would be a tiebreaker. And then religious organizations can qualify if they meet the outlined guidelines. And the Board of Supervisors would see a final list of organizations before funding would occur. Again, the nonprofit, I'm giving this for informational purposes only. This has not been approved by the Board of Supervisors. We will have that discussion on Wednesday with them. And then I want to see if there's any questions about that.
With the Dillon rule, would the Board of Supervisors have, could they actually reject something at the end?
For the for-profit?
Yeah, because you have to show them that list. Can they actually reject something under the Dillon rule?
So for the nonprofits, they have the authority to grant money to nonprofits. They would not have the authority to grant money to for-profits.
Right. But you also said they're going to see a list at the end before funding is granted.
That's only for nonprofits.
Yeah. And so they could say no?
To nonprofits, but not to for-profits. We're only asking at this time, the EDA, the funding.
Gotcha.
So CIC will give us a list, and we haven't discussed our funding options, how we would handle funding yet. And the Board of Supervisors have only asked for approval for the nonprofits.
So the $100,000 is not under consideration for EDA action.
Correct.
Okay.
So the 3% fee that the CIC is getting, does that come off of the top of the 350, or is that paid separately?
That would be paid in additional.
Okay, and is the county paying that?
The county will be paying that.
And that they paying them directly to CIC?
We have not discussed that. I'll defer to Mr. Dahl if we have a preference on that.
So that's a good follow-on question to that would be, are we looking at a one-time funding in and one-time funding out? Or are we one-time funding in and then funding out if Stephen needs it?
Eric, do you have a?
So let me go back to the first question. And I'm sorry, what was the first question again?
About the 3%.
Yeah, so I think for the 3%, I think it would just make sense, since we're gonna be funneling all money through the EDA, it would just make sense to do the same. Just to be consistent.
So and just instead of giving us 350,000, you'd give us $360,500.
Correct.
Okay. And just that this is it when you do that, is that in the form of a check? Do you do a wire transfer? How do you do things nowadays?
I mean, we could do one or two. I mean, we could figure that out whichever way works best for the EDA. We could set it up where the treasurer could do a wire to the EDA account, or we could just do a check.
All right.
And going back to Rudy, your question was, can you
Are we going to
explain-
do a one-time transfer in and one-time transfer out, or are we going to fund CIC as needed?
I would imagine that, are you talking about as applicants are approved?
Yes.
I would imagine that we would fund them, and this is for discussion from the EDA standpoint. I mean, to me, from the county, we've got the money invested currently, and we've got it invested, you know, in a decent investment account. So our thinking was we would push the money through when needed. Now, from the EDA, I don't know if it makes sense to put it all to the EDA and then for you to hold on to it and then fund it through the CIC as the different applicants are approved, or, you know, same thing, if it's kind of a batch of CIC, okay, well, we've got these applicants approved and let's release 50,000 and then we release it to the EDA and then so on and so forth for that going to the CIC. Like I said, that's kind of up for discussion, but I think the one thing is the county does have the money invested currently, and any interest that we earn on that, we've got to be able to capture that and track that pretty well. So that's where, standpoint, we've got a sub account set up through the Virginia Investment Pool for these CARES Act funds.
So Eric, could you find out for us whether or not, if you gave us a bulk amount, do we have to track the interest earned separately, or are we able to take advantage of that float until the CIC needs the money? Because, you know, our funding options are pretty limited.
Yeah. I will find out on what would happen if the EDA gets the interest. How does that look? Does the EDA have the float of? I'm thinking there's going to be some guidelines since the county has to specifically follow certain guidelines to the interest. I would imagine that same mechanism would possibly fall to the EDA, but I don't know that 100%. I mean, there's lots of guidance from the U.S. Treasury for what we have to do. Like, for instance, that's why it has some very specific requirements for what applicants can and cannot use the money for. It has to fall in line with the U.S. Treasury guidance.
Now, I will think, though, CIC, just based off of the people interested in applying, of course, they have not applied. We don't know if they'll ask for the maximum amount. We don't know if all of them will be eligible as well. That being said, right now we're looking at being at full capacity. I'm going to guess the CIC, once they've made application decisions, will want to batch fund as much as possible. But again, we don't know if that batch fund will be 200,000 or 350,000.
Yeah, I don't think we want to do onesie twosies, but I mean, again, if they've got, you know, big batches that they're going to be releasing at certain points, then yeah, we would certainly want to do it in some type of batch environment to make sure that we're not making this more work intensive than it needs to be by doing a onesie twosie funding, because that's really not the purpose. But
You alluded to, and I assume that since it's federal money, there's all sorts of reporting and other things that have to be done. And either you, the county, or the CIC is taking care of that. The EDA won't have to do anything.
That is correct. You know, if the county were to be audited, that's why we are making sure we are following the U.S. guidance 100% for what it can and cannot be used for. That the county would be the one that would have some audit standards that we have to follow. And I'm sure that there's going to be documents, and maybe Brian can speak on this since CIC is kind of familiar with this a little bit and has done this and has been looking into this, that there'll be some, you know, some audit documents that they'll have in place too.
So they've already requested specific documents from businesses. In addition to that, I had a phone call today with our director of finance, and she has been in communication with our auditors about what they will like to see on this program, and she's reviewing the documents that CIC is requesting as well to make sure that they're, you know, matching up to what the auditors will want to see, because the auditors are the ones that are going to sign off that we followed the guidelines. So ultimately at the county level. So we were making sure that we have everything in place before applications go live, which it looks like they will go live on July 8th.
And assuming the money is dispersed in small quantities or larger quantities, you'll set up some sort of system so that the EDA is notified, you know, what to release when and whatever.
Yeah, well, Stephen will work with.
Okay.
With basically what will happen is the BOS will distribute money to EDA. EDA will distribute to CIC, and then CIC will distribute through their mechanism to the businesses. So CIC only does things via ACH when they're giving them to businesses. So that's actually, they said, one of the harder parts is getting people to submit their ACH information.
From my point of view, I think that the fee to CIC should probably be on a contract basis and not come through the EDA. I'd like to see these come through in batches so we don't have to write a bunch of checks and do a bunch of transfers and have our hands in the pockets of people.
So we are going to be having a new MOU with CIC. So currently there is an MOU between Board of Supervisors and CIC. We will be updating that for the August meeting, the first August meeting. But we can ask them for an invoice, of, you know, something like that, and that way we have a paper trail.
Yeah, we can get some further guidance. I mean, if the EDA prefers that we pay CIC directly, if we can do that, then we'll do so. I mean, you know, we just have to follow what makes the most sense for U.S. Treasury guidance.
And Dylan roll at the same time, which.
Right.
Is there any more discussion? All right, ready for a motion then?
All right, this is Dan. So who's up? I guess Lois is taking the minutes. I move that the Economic Development Authority transmit $350,000 to the Community Investment Collaborative for the Funds for Recovery Operations, Fluvanna Small Business Grants pending Board of Supervisors appropriation.
Rudy will second that.
Okay, and I'll poll everybody on their votes, please. All right, Scott,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Rudy,
Yes.
Bert. I think he's absent right now. Lois,
Yes.
and I vote yes. So we've got 6 with.
Hold on, I just got Mr. Flood back, I think.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, Bert,
He
How
said,
do
yeah.
you vote on the motion?
You said yes.
Yes, okay, so we got seven,
Yes.
Six.
No, we have six.
six.
And Dan Nunziato will present the minutes. I got them right here.
No,
Okay.
I'm not the secretary anymore.
No, Lois,
Lois is the
Technically,
secretary.
well, until July 1st.
No, at the last
Oh,
meeting.
that's true. That's true. Okay, so Lois got him. I'll say,
I haven't been taking notes, right?
I've been taking the notes.
okay, well, between Lois and Scott, we'll get those right, okay?
We had determined that I was not taking notes last time.
Oh, okay, all right.
Okay.
Mr.
got-
Marshall likes the
I'll do the notes. I'll do the minutes, but Lois, you were elected until July 1st, so you'll sign
Right.
as the secretary.
And it was determined that since the vote was halfway through the meeting and you were taking notes, that I was not going to be taking notes for the last meeting.
Yeah, no, I've already emailed those minutes.
Okay, good.
Okay, all right.
Thank you,
All
Scott.
right. Okay, now, Austin had some options for us. I know Dan had talked about doing some masks and we found out that that was pretty expensive. So Austin came up with some options for us if we want to do an immediate action. And I'll turn that over to Austin and Brian.
Yeah, so we had talked last meeting about possibly doing masks, but I think we kind of decided customizable masks and masks in general were too expensive. The cheapest ones I could find were about $3.50 or $4 a mask, and so that gets pretty expensive pretty quickly. And
Can
so
I ask may I ask a couple of questions about the masks before you go any further, if you don't mind?
Yeah.
Was there a minimum quantity?
The websites there wasn't a minimum, but you had to order it in either 50, 100, 200, and so you couldn't specify a number. You had to select a quantity.
Yeah, so you could order 250 if you wanted to, and not 5,000.
Yes.
Is that what you're suggesting? Okay.
Yeah.
And do you remember what the delivery time was?
I believe that they were, I mean, it depended on the website. I looked at a couple different ones. They were anywhere from a week to 3 weeks.
And were they reusable masks or disposable masks?
They're reusable.
Okay. All right, I'm sorry.
No worries.
Go ahead.
And then, so I looked at a couple other options, one of them being hand sanitizer, as it was significantly cheaper than masks. And there was really just the upfront purchase of a dispenser. And then the refill ability for the hand sanitizer is pretty cheap. And an option to recognize the EDA's involvement and purchase of it, you could easily place a sticker on the front of the hand sanitizer as well. A couple of the hurdles we would have to jump over would be we would need permission from the landlords of whatever business we're installing the dispensers at to install those. And then I'll also discuss some refilling plans, whether that would be we give the hand sanitizer to the landlords to refill on their own, or one of us ourselves would go to the hand sanitizer dispensers and refill them personally. And so the dispenser that I recommended, it's probably the cheapest. It's a wall mounted unit. I looked into stands, but they're $90 at the cheapest, and the $90 stand is incredibly short and not the greatest material. And that $90 doesn't include dispenser or sanitizer. It's solely the stand. And so the wall mounted unit relatively is much cheaper, and they're just as accessible. And so the one I'm going to recommend is if there's a picture on the next page that we'll get to, but it dispenses about 1 milliliter each squirt, and it holds 700 milliliters. So that's about 700 people being able to wash their hands before a refill would be needed. It's automatic, so you're decreasing the amount of hand-to-hand touching, even though you'd be using the hand sanitizer after. It's still decreasing that amount and making it a little bit safer. And so one of those dispensers, as you see in the table down here, costs $41.99, and I just gave 10 dispensers as an option to buy, which would come out to $419.90. And then the hand sanitizing gel, which the county has previously purchased hand sanitizing gel at $10 for 2 liters. And so if you use that pricing, it comes out to $40 for 8 liters. And it would require 7 liters to fill each of those 10 dispensers. But given that you can only buy it in 2 liter increments, you would have to buy 4 for the initial filling up, and which would be 40. And then this website offers free shipping. So there's no shipping cost. And so it comes out to a total of almost $460, most of that being the upfront cost of the dispenser.
And another reason why we were kind of hesitant about stands in this suggestion is that, these are going to be sitting outside 24 hours a day, and anyone can come and just pick up the stand and off they go. So we're trying to find a more permanent solution to them sticking around.
Yeah, and so this is the examples from the company's website. Their dimensions are down here, almost 4.5 inches by 6.5 inches tall, a little over 3.5 inches wide, and then it's no touch. You can easily see how much hand sanitizer is left in the unit and refill accordingly. It's simple to refill. You just pop the top off, pour the hand sanitizer in, shut the top, and it's good to go. So do you guys have any questions about the hand sanitizer?
My reaction to it, it's an awful lot of working parts. Installation, refilling, if they're going to be outside, they're subject to not only weather, but people, God knows doing what, and when I brought up the subject, I was thinking of something simple. And this doesn't sound simple to me.
No, it's not. It does require a lot of moving parts. And the next option I'm going to talk about is much simpler. It's really just a one-time thing that is also cheaper than masks. So if you guys have more questions about the hand sanitizer, feel free to ask, or I can continue. All right, I'll keep going. So the next suggestion was an infrared thermometer. It's a thermometer that doesn't require touching or any contact with the person either giving or receiving the reading. And so it's really easy, gives you back your temperature in 1 second, and it would provide businesses the ability to screen customers coming into their store, keeping both them and the customer safe. And the cost per unit is somewhat similar to the hand sanitizer, with the cheapest ones being around $30 and the most expensive high-tech, change all types of units of measurement and how to read being $70. And so keeping with the number 10, the EDA could fund or purchase thermometers for the first 10 businesses that would ask for a thermometer. And so I have 2 options for this one. One is cheaper, one's a little more expensive. This one is $36.99. It's cheaper. It has good reviews on Amazon. Here are the different components. It has an LCD display. There's a sensor, down button to kind of guide the sensor where you need, up button to set, and then you just pull the button at the bottom here to measure it, and it's 2 AAA batteries. And here's to the right is an example of someone using one. You hold it about 2 to 3 inches away from their forehead. It can go a little farther, but it's most accurate when you hold it within a couple inches. And as you can see, there's no touch. You just pull the button at the bottom, it'll give you a read back in about a second or 2. And so the other option is $58.79. It is a little more expensive, but it is also FDA cleared. It's not FDA approved. There is a difference. FDA approved means it's gone through the testing process and has been deemed approved by the FDA. FDA cleared just means that they have given it an initial look and they have said, yes, we're okay with this being on the market. This was one of the only ones I could find that was FDA approved. So that I think that is probably why it's a little more expensive. It's also a little more high tech, as you can see indicated here on the left. It'll give you a little beep when when it has read your temperature, and it does include a memory of the past couple temperatures you've done, and then much of the other objects much of the other toggling buttons are the same. It's got an LCD display, temperature unit, you can do Celsius or Fahrenheit. And then the difference is you press the button right here on the front that's about a semicircle to read the temperature, as opposed to pulling the trigger like option in the previous one. And then you use it the same, couple inches away from the forehead, and it gives you back temperature in about a second. So those were the two options that I thought, after doing some research, would probably be best. The main difference being price, and that one is FDA cleared, and that's probably the reason for the height in price, in addition to a couple more special buttons, I guess is how to word it best. So you guys have any questions about those?
Yeah, I talked to my doctor who does these screenings with the infrared thermometer, and they say they're kind of variable as far as accuracy and reliability. Did they give any indication of, plus and minus ranges for these?
The description of the product said that there is little to no variance, most of it being under 1 degree Fahrenheit, and the reviews seem to support that. There were a couple that were probably one or 2 star reviews that said that they didn't believe that their temperature reading was accurate. There were much less of those on the FDA cleared one than the other one, and that's not to say there were a lot on the other one, but there were more on the first option that I showed.
And we thought of this idea with not only could it help for retailers, but also just regular, our industrial users could have one of these and they could screen employees as they come in. It's something that's kind of easy and quick, to Mr. Nunziato's point. Much fewer balls in the air trying to juggle than the hand sanitizer stations, for sure. Lot less of a headache, for sure.
Can I just bring up something just as an observation? All right, if I might. So I was out today and I ran a whole bunch of errands. I went to the post office. I went to E.W. Thomas. I went to CVS. I went to the liquor store. I went to Food Line, and I had lunch at Subway. And with the exception of E.W. Thomas, there were no sanitizing stations. Food Lion has some old wipes. When I picked one up to wipe the cart down, it was dry. Obviously, no one has been using it. So I just wonder if people are actually going to use these things. We're going to phase 3 in a couple of days. Unfortunately, I'm not psychic, so I don't know that we're not going to end up back in phase 1 in another couple of months. But hopefully that's not going to happen. And you give something to somebody to be all excited, and then in 2 weeks, it'll be in a drawer somewhere, because nobody will bother checking as far as that's concerned. I'm not saying one way or the other. I'm just, in my mind, I can't grasp whether people are actually going to use things. When I had mentioned masks is a different thing. Okay, I understand the price, so I'm not talking about that. But all of this other stuff, something in the back of my mind is saying to me, we could spend a lot of money on them, and they end up in a drawer or on a shelf and never be used.
Austin, did you price out getting sanitizer pumps that you can just give to businesses? And of course, they're going to run out and it disappears, but you could put an EDA sticker on
You're
that.
talking about the ones that you hit the top and.
Yeah, the bigger ones.
Yeah, I looked at those. I can send you guys some info on that as well.
The
They're
problem with
honestly
the,
about the same
with the
price.
pumps is that, if somebody's desperate for hand sanitizer, they'll just pick them up and run off with them.
Yeah, they're about the same price as the dispenser. They might be $5 cheaper, but they're relatively the same price.
The engineering apparently to make it tall is expensive. to have it not mounted to the wall is expensive.
As far as mounting, I'd volunteer to do that myself. I can borrow a hammer drill and put them up. The hard part is getting the permission from the building owner and stuff like that.
And we figured, it's easy for the hand sanitizer for us to pick, okay, you put one, essentially in front of Golden China. You try to get permission to put one by Golden China. That way people can use it going to Food Lion or Subway or the dry cleaners. Okay, you put one over by Jefferson Pharmacy. You can do Happy Trails. You do maybe 2 at Jefferson Center across the street. You can do some at Piedmont Village, but then it gets much more difficult because like Crofton Plaza, you have Ace and you have, do you put it right in front of Ace? Do you try to do for the other businesses? We would just have to work how we could best utilize it without trying to put one at every single business.
Are the tops locked or sealed? Or are they just lift off? I mean, what's to prevent somebody from putting something else in it?
Honestly, I'm not 100% sure on what this particular company uses. I have seen some with locks. I have seen some that are just pop offs. I can go check really quickly if you'd like.
I don't know. It's from my perspective, it's just so many moving parts that could go wrong. Well, somebody put God knows what in it, and then the landlord will complain to us, and do we really want to get involved in that?
Well, and also the EDA obviously cannot fund this indefinitely.
Yeah.
So you do you hope to fund it through the end of the year? Do you hope to fund it for a few months? The hand sanitizer obviously was a lot, but we wanted to bring it forward to you in case that was something you guys wanted.
Could you advertise it to the businesses and see if they wanted to sign up for one, and then we could figure out how many to get and make them responsible for it, so you guys don't have to go out and do anything?
That would make more sense to me. Okay, we'll provide the device, and then they're responsible for it after that. We won't mount it or anything.
We could do that as well.
It'd be a great service. You could, because all the people down in Fork, Union, Columbia, and we could just limit it to the first 40 people that request one. We'll pay for it and the sanitizer, and then they have to mount it. They have to maintain it and take care of it.
And we can give them an initial supply of the liquid, and we would probably want to have a sort of a ballpark figure of what we're talking about. But
well, Austin had 40, so we could just go with 40 of them.
Well,
Max,
that's fine.
Max.
I mean, I don't see us why we don't want to get involved in maintenance and problems.
Now, that was $40 per unit. So we were only suggesting 10. I don't know how much money the EDA wants to spend on this. And we wouldn't have to do a locking device if we were just going to give it to the businesses. So we could utilize that. And then we would just have to figure out stickers or, however you want the EDA's branding on it.
I think you just advertising it to the businesses as EDA. We don't have to worry about the stickers. They know where they got it from, the owner. They know that we care about them.
Well, I think Dan was.
He wants to do something for the community and the business community.
Right.
And
he wanted us to get a little credit for it, I think. Right, Dan?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that wouldn't hurt us. We keep on saying about, we have no visibility. Okay. I mean, to me, that's why the masks were a better idea. But after we finish this, I have a question from Eric. I wanted to ask him about.
But if you put it in the chamber corner to advertise this, we would be getting not the chamber corner, whatever that thing is called. We would get credit and the business owners would know. If Sal's asked for one, they know it came from us.
I can live with that.
Austin, in our access of PPE equipment for the county, there's that one local business that makes N95 masks. Do they make any others? Did you have a chance to look at them? And maybe we can form a creation to fill Dan's wants that have subsidy from us, and the business community can purchase it, but with a subsidy, and therefore spread it out a little bit more.
I've not had the chance to look at that, but that's a great idea. And jumping back to the accessibility of the sanitizing stations, it's not locked at the top. It's just like a little screw on the top that you turn and it opens it. So
Now, we don't have any businesses in the county that are producing an N95 mask or any mask thereof. We do have a couple businesses that have relationships with supply chain that they're able to get N95 or surgical masks. So we definitely could reach out to, I know of at least two that in the county.
There's Bright Ideas, and I don't know what the other one is.
Vision Tech Solutions Group, VSG.
While we're thinking about this, can I ask Eric a question? Okay, perhaps. About 2 weeks ago, there was a little something in the paper in Charlottesville about how you can go to the libraries in Albemarle and Charlottesville and pick up free masks. So, and it was sponsored by the health department. So out of curiosity, I called our local health department to find out if there was something similar planned for Fluvanna County. And they referred me to the health department in Charlottesville, who told me that, no, that was actually sponsored by Albemarle County and the city of Charlottesville. And they paid for it and, you know, and made all of the arrangements and things like that. I know somebody who got some masks, and they were actually very nice masks, all right? And you just drove up and they asked you how many masks you wanted and they handed them to you, you know? Is there anything like that planned for Fluvanna County?
Yes, so that's a great question. So yeah, so we actually did receive from the health department, we got an allotment of 2,000 white cloth face masks that we gave. 1,000 went to the schools, and then the county kept 1,000 to give out. In addition, we're planning some type of event similar. The board of supervisors also allocated some funds for yard signs that say, please protect you and your neighbors, or wear a face mask. So we're working on getting some yard signs printed up, and then we're looking at doing some type of, whether it's a one-day kind of drive-through thing, or working with some other organizations to distribute the yard signs and some face masks.
That's my understanding of what it was in Charlottesville. The libraries, like to the North Side Library, you drove up and they handed you one mask or 10 masks, however many people you said were in your household. But anyway.
Yep.
I believe this is the mask, right, Eric?
That is the mask.
Yeah, this is what I needed a mask.
I saw one of them. It's actually a nice mask for, and the only reason is because, with the beard, I have a problem. All right.
I was at Lowe's yesterday and I wore one, so.
Yeah. All right. Well, getting back to whatever we were talking about, I'm sorry to get off the subject.
Okay, is there any
So Curtis, would it make sense, because we have a quorum, would it make sense to follow along with what Scott said, authorize purchase of up to X number, whatever that number is, advertise it to the businesses, and then as we get responses, then we could go out and whoever the treasurer is can go ahead and order the items and deliver them to the businesses.
as far as
We
the
don't
hand
have to-
sanitizer?
Yeah, then we don't have to worry about, buying stuff and holding on to it until somebody
Right.
wants it and having someplace to store it, like your storage shed,
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
that's why masks are easier, instead of
Okay.
having to worry
well,
about.
At
you
least
still
then
have
we
to
wouldn't-
worry about distributing the masks and all that.
But then we would have we'd have the authorization already in place, and if we don't get any businesses that want the hand sanitizers, then we don't have to disperse the funds.
Okay, that sounds reasonable. And then I
That makes
think
sense,
also,
Scott?
I think we could put just a little simple sticker on there that says provided by the dispenser provided by the Fluvanna EDA, and leave it up to the business to stock it and keep it full.
So just to be clear, what we're talking about is buying the dispenser and maybe one additional cartridge to give to the business as they request it, and then after that, they're on their own.
Yes.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I'd say fill it, provide it full the first time and leave it to them after that. Or send a supply with it. I'm not certain.
And what was I'm sorry, Austin, what was the number you were talking about? You were talking about 10, for ballpark figure, $500 with a shipping cost?
Yeah, I said that if you bought 10 of the dispenser that I suggested, it would be a little over 400, and then including the gel is about 460.
And the EDA is scheduled to meet again on July 13th anyhow. We can, between now and July 13th, that's not a lot of time. So my point being, if we get 20 businesses that contact you that are interested, then we'll be back to you on July 13th. We have a good 2-week window to come up with kind of a solution, to know how many people will be interested.
Well, how will you do that? In the Fluvanna review, your fan mail,
Well, I would do it via email primarily. And we have something in the business corner this week. And then Rudy, when's our next business corner?
Third week in July.
So it'd be the 16th.
Yeah, I think that's the right date.
So I can, with Rudy and myself, we can just kind of keep an eye on who's requested them by the 9th, because that's kind of when we write the articles for the next week. And if we don't have enough, then we can put something in. And if we do have enough, then we'll wait, and we can figure that out as we go.
Yeah, and we can, I can commit the chamber to sending it out in our news you can use as well.
Okay,
okay,
so we
so
want
basically you're authorizing Brian to advertise that we're willing to pay for 10 and maybe set a deadline of like August the 1st, although you'll update us on the 12th. And if in August the 1st, if you need 13 of them, we might be able to get 13. August the 1st, if they only want 8 of them, we get you 8.
Man.
And if you get 25, we're going to have a problem.
Well, we'll
Yeah.
just say on a first come, first served basis and see. I'm not going to put say there's only 5 or only 10. I just first come, first served basis, and hopefully we get,
something.
Yeah.
Well, we can always turn over there and look to Eric to fund the rest of them with CARES money, because that is direct COVID related.
Well, why don't we just authorize Brian to go ahead and why don't we just go ahead and advertise this, and then we'll work out the money details at the next meeting. Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah, you want to make a motion?
I think you'd want to at least commit to 10, so we know that right now that's our ballpark. Because if we tell them,
You want to make a motion, Scott, or you want me to make it?
Go ahead, Rudy.
Do we have a motion?
Yeah, I'll make the motion for us. I move that the EDA fund put aside funds for 10 of the dispensers filled with hand sanitizer as described by Austin, and furthermore authorize Brian and the Chamber of Commerce to advertise to businesses that they're available on a first come, first served basis.
There's a second.
I'll second that, but do we want to specify, let's up to $500 or something, because it was 460, you said? Was that what you, is that what
Yeah,
you
I
said?
mean, we can go ahead and
Austin?
put the cap, we can put that in there if you want.
Yeah.
So just
Well, I mean,
modify
that's,
that.
if it's 460, that'll give us some extra bucks.
Sure.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask for that clarification. So yeah, if you could put a dollar amount, that would be helpful.
Yeah,
Well,
up to
500 sounds good.
$500.
So we have a motion to supply 10 hand sanitizer stations filled, and the amount we're gonna cap it at 560, is that it? Is that what I'm hearing?
500.
500, no, just cap it at 500. Okay. We'll poll everybody on this. Scott,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Rudy,
Yes,
Bert,
Yes.
Lois,
Yes,
and I vote yes. That's all 7.
6.
Huh? 6, I'm sorry, 6 to
6.
none. Excuse me. Okay, well, I think that about wraps up our business for today. And thank everybody
I
for
would
being
like
here.
to move that we
And,
talk about my email in our next meeting,
We'll discuss that, Bert.
at our next
All right.
meeting.
And so we'll be adjourned now.
Thanks, everybody.
Frank.